Honda has just revealed the brand new 2022 Civic Si, and it is spicy, and we're going to get into the details. We're also going to compare it to the sedan and show you the differences. Here it is, the brand new 2022 Si sedan. It only comes in sedan, that's it, and it has a 1.5 liter engine. It makes 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. Don't worry, we're going to get into all the specs in a second, and it only comes with a manual transmission. So they're calling this the best handling and most fun to drive Civic Si ever. They're targeting a new generation of young driving enthusiasts because it's going to be fairly affordable with a richer, more engaging character, and it has an updated turbocharged engine, which I just mentioned, standard manual transmission, limited slip, and a sport-tuned suspension with available summer tires. And it does get a cool interior. So here's the thing, this gets only a manual transmission. There's no CVT available in this. Let me know your thoughts on that. Can you guys actually drive a manual transmission? I just did a poll. I'm going to post the results up here in a second. It's actually quite atypical of the rest of the driving world, but hey, you guys are enthusiasts. And this manual transmission does have a rev matching system, which they have apparently cribbed from the Type R, the current one. Now, the new upcoming Type R, we've seen some spy photos. I've got some video on that. That's about all that we have right now. It's been out testing in the Nürburgring. So let's look at some of the highlights. So an updated 1.5 liter turbocharged engine with a broader torque curve and a lighter flywheel for quicker response and improved drivability. We get the 6-speed manual. We do get a upgraded suspension. We're going to talk about that. And here's what I think is actually really excellent is this 60% stiffer steering system with a torsion bar that is going to improve feel. Honda already has excellent feel in their steering racks, probably some of the best in the industry, certainly at the price point, absolutely the best at the price point. So this is going to be better. And I just drove the Civic sedan, the sport model, and I'm going to have a full review up on that shortly. I'm editing that right now. It's pretty good. And if you've driven the previous Type R, I thought the steering was a revelation. Again, at the price point, I think it's superb. Honda is doing perhaps the best steering in the industry for front-wheel drives, I think, period. I'm just going to put it out there. They're really, really, really good. So I got some slides up on screen right now, but let's talk about the engine, the thing that everybody wants to know about. So it's a 1.5 liter turbo engine, 4-cylinder, of course, and the torque band is broader and fatter than before. So now we get maximum torque of 192 pound-feet from 1,800 all the way up to 5,000. And so that is 300 RPM earlier than the previous generation engine. And also the peak horsepower, which is 200, we'll talk about that, is from 6,000 to 6,500. So it's they're saying it's a slightly broader peak power too. The old engine had 205 horsepower, and the weight is pretty similar between these two vehicles. So this new Si sedan weighs 2,952 pounds, so pretty similar weight. I think we're going to see very similar 0 to 60 times compared to the last one. Motortrend had the previous generation going 0 to 60 in about 6.8 seconds, so this is not a rocket ship by any means, but this is still pretty affordable, and it's not quite a hot hatch. I kind of wish it was, but here we are with a sedan. Okay, so the flywheel is 26% lighter than the previous version, so it should rev a little bit quicker. It should feel a little bit more zingy and a little bit more responsive. And they're also saying that you get a 30% reduction in inertia, and so it should feel a little bit snappier and just have better response overall while you're driving it. And of course, we get a helical limited slip differential up front too. And the 6-speed manual transmission we were just talking about, it has 10% shorter throws than before, and it's got a more rigid bracket, so it really should feel a lot more crisp and better shifting. And if you know the Honda shifting situation, the experience is legendary. You got this little snick, snick, snick kind of feel to it. Super light, super crisp. I've always loved the Honda gearboxes. I'm looking forward to this. And it does have auto rev matching, which they have cribbed from the Civic Type R. So we do have some updated drive modes compared to the sedan, which had Econ, Normal, and Sport. Now we get a customizable drive mode, which you can customize on the display panel. and it's going to adjust the throttle response, steering assist. It's going to reduce the steering assist, so it's going to feel better. It's going to get rid of the idle start-stop system, which I'm not a big fan of, or rather turn it off. And you can turn rev matching on or off too, which I like because I like to rev match manually. Don't know about you guys, but that is a lot of fun to do. And the rev matching system is going to teach you how to do it, but really, if you want to really learn how to drive a manual transmission, you should learn how to do it yourself. So the interior, not too different, although we do get some really nice looking sport seats. The lower cushions have been raised a ½ inch at the front, and they're going to have obviously more lateral support too. It's contrasting stitching on the doors, the steering wheel, the center armrest, and the shift boot. We've got the standard 7-inch display with the digital tack on the left, and in the center you get a 9-inch HD touchscreen color display. Kind of odd, like on the more base models you get a 7-inch, and the upper end, like the Touring, get a 10.2-inch, so this is kind of in between. You do also get a 12-speaker Bose sound system, which should sound pretty good. I actually thought the bass, or above the bass, the Sport 8-speaker 180-watt system, I thought it sounded pretty good actually. So let's talk about handling, which is obviously where this vehicle is going to excel. So the spring rates are 8% stiffer in the front and 54% stiffer in the rear compared with the regular Civic sedan. And we actually have some brand new dampers too that have been specifically tuned for the Si. Of course, they are McPherson strut dampers. And now we get upper mounts which have been reinforced and thicker sway bar. So the front sway bar is 27 millimeters and it's hollow. The rear sway bar is 18 millimeters and it's solid. So these are bigger. You're going to get less body roll than the regular Civic sedan. So the rear bushings are going to be stiffer in the upper arms, and the lower B arms are also sourced from the Civic Type R. And I talked about the steering field before, but we got a 60% stiffer torsion bar connecting the steering shaft to the steering rack and pinion gear. So that should provide a lot more directness to the steering. We get bigger brakes. We get 12.3-inch rotors up front, which is 1.2 inches bigger than the standard sedan. And in the rear, we get 11.1-inch rotors which is up 9.9 inches compared to the sedan. And here's something that's a little bit disappointing, but I guess Honda knows you're going to go to the aftermarket. We're talking about 235 4018 all-season performance tires. You get some optional summer performance tires as a factory option, but I think they should just throw that in. It's not really going to cost them a lot of money, and they're probably going to charge you a whole bunch of money for those tires. Hey, probably going to go out and get aftermarket wheels and tires anyhow, so I guess they're kind of keeping the cost down, and that's not a bad thing. So I promised we're going to compare the Si versus the standard sedan. So on the top we have the Si, on the bottom we have the sedan. Let's talk about the differences in design and styling here. It's actually not that big. In the rear we have this rear spoiler on top of the deck lid. Down below it looks pretty similar, although we do have this dual tip exhaust system, which looks like some sort of chrome tips or some polished alloy tips. Obviously the wheels are a lot nicer looking. We have these 18-inch wheels. They are 18-inch 10-spoke wheels. They are matte black. Kind of surprised to see that we don't get any rear lower valance or any side skirts, anything like that, compared with the regular sedan. Kind of an odd choice, but you can get those aftermarket from HPD, or rather dealer installed from HPD, and I'm sure the aftermarket is going to have some too. So we're going to compare the nose here. So the Si, aside from this really beautiful orange paint, which I would totally get, by the way, because I love orange, the front grille is not that different, really. We do have the little Si logo, and the upper part of the grille has sort of a hexagonal type of design. It's a little bit simpler. We don't have those horizontal bars that we get on the standard Si, but as far as I can tell, the headlights are the same, the fog lights are the same. These are all LEDs. It's sort of a 3-projector system. Now the intercooler, or whatever heat exchanger we have up front, appears to be painted black on the Si compared to the non-painted version on the regular Civic sedan. Here's another shot of the rear. Not a lot of difference going on here aside from the sport exhaust tips and the rear spoiler. Of course, we get the little Si logo. The angles of the photos are slightly different, of course, but not a lot of differences in the rear. Here's another side profile shot. The grille is a little bit different looking on the bottom. Perhaps it's got more of these hexagonal pieces sort of going more outwards towards the sides, where on the regular, I presume this is like a Touring, we have a little bit less of that, so maybe there's a little bit more airflow, which would be a good thing. More airflow is good. And actually looking at the upper part of the grille, it does look a little bit bigger, but really it can't be because that's the same piece of metal. Unless I'm mistaken, it looks like the Honda logo is a little bit higher, so maybe we do get a slightly bigger grille up front than the standard sedan. I think that's actually what's going on. Looking at the interior here, pretty similar again, although we do have these red accents going all the way across the dash with this honeycomb style dash, and I love this dash layout, by the way. I think it's really beautiful. So we don't get those red accents on the regular version, and of course we get these lovely looking sport seats. I think they're very nice, and it looks like there's just a little bit more sort of blackout elements going on in here, although this could be the color grading of the photograph. Looks like the center console is slightly revised so that the actual cargo bin itself might be smaller and there's more space for stuff in the center bin. Can't quite tell from this photograph, but that's what it appears to be to me. Please subscribe if you want to check out the Honda Civic Sport Sedan review that I'm working on right now. It's a really great car. I go relatively in-depth into the car, the way it looks and feels and drives. My name is Eric. Thanks for watching.